The greatest story ever told. From the beginning until now. Primeval history and the first covenant. From the beginning to circa 2100 BC. Chapter 1. The creation and the fall in Eden. The problem begins. Background. In the beginning, before the existence of time and space. Unlike many ancient Near Eastern myths that asserted a chaotic polytheism, this story begins with the declaration of Yahweh, Jehovah, the one and only Creator. The proclamation of order, Genesis 1. In the beginning, when there was only darkness and chaos, there existed God, the self-existent Absolute. The first command spoken by God was, "Let there be light." At a single word, time and space were created, and chaos was transformed into order. Over 6 days, God designed the universe with intentionality and purpose. Sky and land, sea and earth were separated, and the sun, moon, and stars found their proper places. The earth became filled with plants, trees, and life. On the final day, God created humanity as the pinnacle of all creation. God, to himself, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them rule over all the living creatures on the earth." Breathing the breath of life into Adam, humanity, who was formed from the dust, he became a living being. God created a beautiful paradise, the Garden of Eden, for him, and created a companion, Eve, life, blessing their perfect fellowship. This world was perfect, and an intimate covenant was forged between humanity and the Creator. Although they were free to enjoy the tree of life, there was a single forbidden command: "You shall not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for on the day you eat of it, you shall surely die." This was the sole boundary testing human obedience. 2. Betrayal and exile, Genesis 3. As time passed in the Garden of Eden, humanity lived peacefully, enjoying everything. However, a crafty entity named Satan approached Eve in the form of a serpent. "Serpent, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? You will certainly not die. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Humanity doubted the Creator's word. Eve succumbed to the temptation, seeing that the fruit was pleasing to the eye and desirable to make one wise, and Adam also ate the fruit she handed to him. In this moment, the covenant was broken. They immediately realized they were naked, and trembling with fear, they covered themselves with fig leaves and hid from the presence of God. God, walking in the garden, "Adam, where are you?" God did not ask because he did not know what they had done. The question was a lament over the broken relationship. Human disobedience immediately turned into sin, entering the world. The consequences of sin were severe. Painful toil was given to man, and the pains of childbearing to woman. The final verdict was pronounced: "For dust you are, and to dust you shall return." Humanity was banished from the Garden of Eden to prevent them from reaching out to the tree of life and living forever. Yet even within this judgment, God gave the first promise of salvation, the proto-evangelium, that the offspring of the woman would destroy the offspring of the serpent. 3. The spread of sin, Genesis 4-11. The world outside Eden was filled with suffering and anxiety. Out of jealousy, Adam's son Cain murdered his brother Abel in the field. Murder became the first recorded crime in human history, and sin destroyed families, spreading rapidly across the whole world. When the wickedness of the world reached the heavens, God grieved. While ancient Near Eastern myths portrayed God's destroying the world out of mere caprice or strife, the Bible makes it clear that judgment was inevitable due to humanity's moral corruption. God judged the world with a great flood, sparing only the righteous Noah and his family. After the floodwaters receded, God established a rainbow covenant with Noah and his descendants, promising never to destroy the world by flood again. Yet even after the judgment, human nature remained unchanged. Fallen back into pride, people built the Tower of Babel to make a name for themselves. God confused their language and scattered them across the earth, dispersing humanity into various nations and cultures. The world fell into a desperate darkness. Humanity possessed no power to save itself. Now, God waited for the time to choose not all humanity, but a single person, to plant a new seed of salvation. The story now turns toward Abraham. Chapter 2. The Great Flood and Noah's Covenant, Mercy in the Midst of Judgment. Background. Following the expulsion from the Garden of Eden, sin spread rapidly, and the world became filled with violence and corruption. Unlike various ancient Near Eastern myths that explained the flood as the result of the god's caprice, this story addresses the Creator's righteous judgment upon humanity's moral decay. 1. God's Lament, Genesis 6. As sin spread, human lifespans drastically decreased, and the world became filled with violence, hamas, and corruption, shahat. People were consumed solely with doing evil. God, inner anguish, I regret that I have made human beings. My heart is deeply troubled. I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them all the living creatures. God's lament was a declaration of judgment. The world had lost its original order and was destined to return to the chaotic waters. However, in the midst of that despair, one man named Noah shone as a beacon of hope. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis chapter 6 verse 8. Noah was a righteous man of his time, and he lived a life walking with God. God approached Noah, informed him of the end of the world, and commanded him to build a massive ark capable of holding him, his family, and every kind of living creature. 2. Salvation in the ark, Genesis chapter 7. Even amid the mockery and ridicule of those around him, Noah silently built the ark for over 100 years. He obeyed God's word to build the vessel, and upon completing it, he brought all his family members and the creatures on board. Finally, the Creator's judgment began, opening the floodgates of the heavens and bursting forth the deep springs of the earth. On that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. And rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Every living thing on earth was submerged, and only Noah's ark floated upon the massive waves. The ark was a symbol of salvation enduring judgment, and a small world waiting for a new beginning. The 8 souls and the creatures inside the ark were under God's mercy and protection. 3. The proclamation of the Rainbow Covenant, Genesis 8-9. After floating on the water for months, the ark finally came to rest on Mount Ararat. When the dove Noah sent out returned with an olive leaf in its beak, they knew that life had begun anew on the earth. Upon exiting the ark, the very first thing Noah did was build an altar on the earth and offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving to God. This sacrifice was the first act of worship by humanity stepping onto the new earth. God approached Noah and his descendants and established a new covenant with them. God, I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. The rainbow symbolizes both God's judgment and his mercy simultaneously. Although he judged the world with righteousness, through the rainbow, he declared an unchanging promise, covenant, that he would never again destroy the world because of humanity's sin. 4. The resurgence of sin and the Tower of Babel, Genesis 9-11. Humanity began anew through Noah's family, but the seed of sin still remained within them. The descendants of Noah's son Ham began to walk the path of wickedness. As humanity migrated eastward and settled in the plain of Shinar, Mesopotamia, they were seized by pride and arrogance. The people's cry, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." This Tower of Babel was not merely a building. It was a symbol of collective pride, an attempt to gather human technology and power to defy God and rebel against his command to fill the earth. Instead of destroying the tower, God confused their language. As communication became impossible, humans could no longer understand one another, ultimately abandoning the construction of the tower and scattering over the face of the whole earth, just as commanded. The Creator's plan was not thwarted, but human sinfulness and pride continuously threatened the covenant. Humanity was dispersed into various nations, embarking on a path of idolatry and corruption. Now, the story transitions to the next era, where God chooses just one man out of the scattered humanity to begin a new and everlasting covenant. His name is Abraham. Next up is 2. The Patriarchal Age and the Covenant of the Seed, circa 2100 BC, circa 1876 BC. If you are curious about the next story, please subscribe to this channel now.